follow in terms of Hi, Jeff. Man. How are you?
You can go ahead. We're live.
Okay. Thank you very much for attending tonight's Transportation and Safety Committee meeting. we have agendas that are available. Basically, the bulk of the meeting is to discuss Ordinance 8992, which is an ordinance creating and adopting Chapter 121 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio, regulating commercial quadricycles. But before we get into that, there is a kind of a housekeeping thing that needs to be done. And so item B is election of Sidewalk Commission member from Transportation and Safety Committee as per City Code 30.115B. We have a City Sidewalk Commission. It consists of 7 members. One of the members is a representative, a council member from the Transportation and Safety Committee. So since we have a new term starting, it seems appropriate to have an election of that particular person. The current representative from the Transportation and Safety Committee of Council is yours truly. And so that's a tidbit of information. Another tidbit is when the Sidewalk Commission was first started way back in it was the 1980s. I was the first chair of that commission. So I will entertain a motion from the Transportation and Safety Committee as to electing the person to represent the Transportation and Safety Committee on the Sidewalk Commission.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would go ahead and make a motion to reappoint you as the representative of the Sidewalk Commission. I know that increased emphasis on sidewalk and street repair is something that you have been a strong advocate for. So if you would be willing to continue in that role, I think it would be appropriate.
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. I greatly appreciate it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Item C, initial committee member comments related to Ordinance 8992. We'll start with seniority. Jeff, have you got any comments?
No, it seems that we've got an ordinance here that the business owner agrees to, the administration obviously agrees to, so this seems a great place to start, and we can always tweak later if needed.
Joel?
I support the motion as it, or at the ordinance as it stands.
Okay, thank you, Joel. And as for me, maybe a little bit of, I've already read the title of the ordinance. The history of it is a gentleman came before council and inquired various other means, email, about expanding his business where he does this to Bowling Green. And so we as council requested that the administration take a look at any possible legislation, any concerns that we may have, and come to us with an ordinance, which is the one we have before us. The actual ordinance has a section for licensing and certain operating regulations, and it's actually kind of a short ordinance. And the reason for that is Ohio state law already has on regulations and so forth, legislation with respect to quadricycles. And so it turns out, and Greg Robinette has mentioned this several times, it's worth mentioning again, and that is that if we did nothing, the business can come to Bowling Green. And so what we have before us is, okay, well, most of the regulations are taken care of at the state level, but it'd be a really good idea to have a permit given so that we know who's doing this and have certain licensing, et cetera. And that's what this ordinance does. So if this ordinance passes in its current form, it just adds a little bit of a layer of information for the city to what already exists at the state level. If this ordinance does not pass in its current form, or doesn't pass at all, then what happens is the business or businesses can still come to Bowling Green. It just won't have this extra layer of communication with it. So it's the legislation in and of itself isn't anything that is a question of do we permit or do we prohibit this from coming into town. This legislation's got nothing to do with that. If there was a desire to prohibit it from coming to town, then that would be a separate piece of legislation. So that's kind of a brief history of it. And that's item C. Item D, lobby visitation related to Ordinance 8992. Is there anyone in the lobby that would love to come and address us about this particular legislation? You raise your hand first. Yes, please. And please use the mic and state your name and address so that Kay can get a record of it.
My name is Rose Drain. I live at 228 East Court Street in Bowling Green. And I guess I have some questions. I should have read the proposed ordinance before I came. I'm sorry I didn't. But my main interest is in knowing how the use of alcohol is going to be regulated on the quadricycles. And is alcohol going to be allowed outside the DORA area? I know there's just a particular season for DORA. And so if the quadricycles are going to operate beyond the DORA season, is alcohol going to be able to be used? So we live in a neighborhood that sees plenty of people who are having fun on a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And there's a lot of debris, along the street. Anyway, so I think that was our main concern. And also, I have not been impressed in the cities where I have seen these in operation with the behavior of the people on the quadricycles, which, if people get too disruptive, I suppose the police can intervene, but it seems as if it's, do we want our city to sort of have the character of a party town? And even if alcohol isn't allowed on the quadricycles, people, may be getting drunk at a bar and then riding the quadricycles. I saw quadricycles in Madison, Wisconsin, and it was appalling. So anyway, since there's nothing that the city can do, unless the city would draft an ordinance prohibiting them, and I suppose you maybe have thought of that and didn't do it. But I think providing Bowling Green's own stamp of approval on it is a good idea. I just kind of question, do we really want them in the first place?
If you stay there, I'll see if I can answer some of what you asked. First, according again to the state, first of all, the way that it works is you've got customers, for lack of a better term, that are seated, and then you've got the operator, the employee that's operating it. They can't have alcohol. Those that are the customers can, but says the person has in their possession on a commercial quadricycle not more than either 36 ounces of beer or 18 ounces of wine. And so that's and it's not purchased from the company doing the quadricycle. They have to bring their own. So they bring their own, and the 36 ounces of beer and 18 ounces of wine, I don't, it depends on the person, et cetera. My guess would be those that are on the quadricycle would know what their limit is. And they're pedaling, but they're not driving.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the operation, it's, according to ordinance, the proposed ordinance, it's prohibited from 11 PM to, I believe it's 7 AM. Yeah. So those hours, they're not allowed. As far as Dora, I don't see that there's any connection between the two.
Okay, so may I ask another question?
Absolutely. That's why I wanted you to stay there.
Yeah. Where are these people going to go to the bathroom?
I would hope some restroom somewhere.
Well, so if they're centering, they'd have to go to City Park, which is not open beyond dusk, I think. And there are no public restrooms in downtown Bowling Green. So are the businesses downtown willing to have these people who didn't buy alcohol from their establishments, are they willing to let them use their restrooms?
I don't. You can't speak unless you're at the mic.
Well, so in similar cities, I think the way that it works is you go from one location to another location. And I don't know if that's what they're planning on doing here, but whatever, whether that's a brewery or a bar or wherever people stop and get off at the restroom. I believe it's a 3-hour period that people are on the bikes, 2 or 3 hours. So somewhere in that time, you have the option to take a pit stop in similar cities.
Okay.
Is that, did we address? what
Yeah,
you-
I think so. I don't think that solves the problem.
And there very well may be the need for further regulation down the road, and we certainly have that option, I think. I guess in my view, it is kind of on us right now to, if we want to tell a business owner that they are not able to open a business, I think that is a pretty high bar that I think we would need.
And I've been, every time it's come up, made the point, and I'm echoing what Jeff said, that we can put this in place. If there's need to modify, then we can modify it. And so I think that's knowing that that is an option for us, I'm hoping gives enough incentive, if any additional incentive would be needed, for the business to operate well. And so it's kind of like, along with what Jeff said, we'll give it a shot. This is our initial legislation, which is not too obtrusive. See what happens, and then reassess if it turns out, let's say, just as an example, that 11 o'clock is too late. And we have the option of adjusting that. And in terms of airing, it's kind of an incremental thing. We'll try this. If we need to, we'll adjust. If we need to, we'll adjust, as opposed to immediately jumping to prohibiting. And I'm hopeful that it will work. And if we need to tweak it, we'll tweak it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And if we may not get it exactly right initially, I mean, there is hopefully a pretty significant chance that we will, but we can adjust it.
Okay. May I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is the quadricycle going to be allowed on Main Street within the downtown area and Worcester Street, like the first 2 blocks on either side of Main?
Currently, it's my understanding that if it's a vehicle, it can be wherever there are vehicles.
Mm.
And I'm kind of anxious to see how that works. My one concern, apart from, another way of having alcohol in the city, my concern is, will it impede traffic? And we have assurances that it's not the business owner's first rodeo, and that they know how to handle all that. So again, I'm anxious to see how that works. If it works great, fantastic. If for some reason it just doesn't, then we reassess. But right now, it's my understanding, yes, it'll be there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your coming out.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Joe Steinmetz, 161 Coast Street in Tiffin. And so good concerns. I want to make sure that I try to address everything that you brought up. So in Tiffin, just kind of the way the bike works is people run it for 2-hour increments. So let's take a Friday night at 5 o'clock, for instance. People get on the bike. They bring their allotted amount of beer, wine, whatever. So typically in about 20, 25 minutes in, so we'll have sponsors on the bike. And so you'll have 3 or 4 different bar sponsors. And to make up for since they're sponsoring, we want to go and show their patronage, right? So we'll stop in and people will go in and have a drink inside, use the bathroom, things like that. So we kind of plan the routes out about every 20, 25 minutes, depending on the group. We'll make a designated stop. Now, some groups just want to hang out on the bike for, most of the 2 hours and whatnot. So from the bathroom standpoint, we've never had an issue in Tiffin. We kind of migrate between going downtown and then kind of navigating through the neighborhoods just because people kind of want to kind of cruise around. So the bathroom issue has not been a big deal from our standpoint. We also have a park in Tiffin. They got some porta pots out and things like that as we're cruising through, we may stop and they use the porta pots. Obviously after dark, same thing. We don't go through the park. From the standpoint of rowdy and my biggest concern, some of the feedback that I've kind of seen online with the BG kind of community and social media and stuff is that, again, a big party bike, and it's just going to be a fiasco and so forth. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure that we're not that. So our target market isn't college kids. You're going to find that college kids, even in Tiffin with 2 colleges, don't ride the bike. Partly they don't want to pay, $20 some plus pay for their own beer to come on, and then pay to go into a stop and things like that. So our target market, quite honestly, is, the 30 somethings up to literally senior citizens. We've had such a good range there, and that's really probably 90% of our rides. The other 10% is there might be college kids, but it's because parents are visiting and taking them out and things like that. So I don't think I've ever had a 14 passenger college group on there. The other thing that my drivers will definitely be trained on is, if somebody is getting, every now and then, some people get excited and, they're kind of up dancing and they might be shaking or something. And we're very, very quick to say, let's keep it down. Let's not get too crazy. We don't want to break anything. Don't want anybody falling off. So again, in Tiffin, we've never had any major issues, never had the cops called, things like that. If something falls off the bike, meaning a beer can, things like that, we stop, we pick it up. We are very, very, very community minded. You will see that we will be donating and trying to be involved in good causes around here, whether that's sponsoring sports teams. One of the things we do down in Tiffin, if a team or a player, a wrestler makes it to state, we give the team a free ride on the bike. We try to do things like that because my biggest thing. So for instance, I'm not even going to paint the bike orange. I want no association with the college. Not that the college is bad, but I'm doing everything I can because I don't want to be associated with this party, crazy atmosphere. Okay. So I'm really trying to do everything I possibly can from the safety and so forth. Our drivers will be trained to make sure that we address things. And if we get somebody that's out of control that we can't handle, we'll do the same thing. We'll call the cops. But we've never had to do that. And I just don't see that happening. From the standpoint of being downtown, I don't know if you've ever been to Tiffin, a lot of one-way streets, very similar to layout here. So what we do is if we get traffic backed up or, especially at a stoplight, we pull over off to the side if there's some open parking spaces. If the streets are all full, we'll pull off into kind of an alley area and kind of get out of the way, let traffic flow through. So we're very mindful of that. When we go to let people off at a bar or whatever, we will, again, find a spot. If there's parking around back, we do everything we can to be out of the way. Not only want to be out of the way, keep traffic moving, but we also don't want somebody to step off into traffic. So very, very mindful of that. So those are things that we've really addressed and been mindful of. We will go through the neighborhoods. And I say that I know you're concerned about trash and litter and all that stuff. Again, there shouldn't be any issue from our bike. what we found in Tiffin is people, as we're driving through, kids come running out of the house. There's the pedal bike, and parents come out and they're waving. It's a really neat thing. People like to be seen on the bike. So people, it's just almost you want to be seen on the bike, and you want to see people out there. We have a little microphone on the bike, and so as I'm driving, oh, hey, there's Liz. How you doing, Liz? It's a really fun environment. So hopefully those address some of your concerns. I know nobody's going to be fully comfortable until you kind of see it in operation, right? But I understand what you're saying. I hear you, and we're going to do everything we can, whether it's myself or anybody driving for me. My business manager, Liz, she'll be our day-to-day operator up here, so she'll be on top of everything. And if there's any major concerns, I'll be up here in a heartbeat. We'll address it, hopefully before these guys even have to hear about it. So.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Does the bike go in reverse?
It does.
Really?
Yep. And I say that it's funny because the first bike we had did not have reverse. So when we parked it in the garage, we had to literally physically push it out. And it was kind of a pain in the butt. So yeah, we made sure this one had reverse.
Okay. And have you ever had someone fall off the bike?
Nope. We've had somebody who went to get off the bike and caught. So let me clarify that. Not had anybody fall off the bike because they were drunk or intoxicated. They got their foot caught around the bar and the seat, and wouldn't even say they fall. They kind of caught themselves as they were dropping. But yeah, never. If somebody is too intoxicated to ride, we're just not going to let them on. So again, we've never had that issue, so we haven't encountered that. I'm sure at some point it will come up, but I think it's going to be such an anomaly that it shouldn't be an issue.
And when do you anticipate starting?
I am hopeful for Memorial Day weekend. But I actually work for the manufacturer also that makes these bikes, so I get to control that a little bit. But we're working through some of the other financing, things like that. So Memorial Day weekend is wishful thinking at this point, but that's kind of our goal.
That's your goal.
Yeah.
Bill, you have anything?
Appreciate your willingness to invest in our community, and good luck to
Absolutely.
you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address committee? Again, sure, come on up. The first one's free.
My name is Rose Drain. I live at 228 East Court Street in Bowling Green. So thinking about the traffic through town during the tractor pull, I wonder if any consideration has been given to not having the quadricycle operate on our busiest streets during some of those types of events. There's a lot of traffic during Fair Week also, but the tractor pull is really significant. So there's that thought. Also, will it be year-round?
As far as the tractor pull and the fair and Black Swamp, I'm sure there'll be some sort of, there aren't restrictions per se for the quadricycle, but there are occasions where we close off streets and so forth, especially with Black Swamp, and that would apply to the quadricycle. And year round, there is no restriction. I myself would find it very difficult to be on a bike like that in January, and I would imagine with the weather that we get, it's similar to Tiffin. They may find it difficult to operate during January and February, but technically in this, there is no restriction other than not between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Another question came to mind, wondering if the person responsible for the passengers checks their coolers that they bring on, or is each person only bringing 3 beers or 18 ounces of wine?
I would assume I'm assuming that is something that they would check, because they'd be in a bit of a pickle if that wasn't being adhered to. I mean, we have there's a law for a reason and there are penalties. So my guess is that they would do what they can to make sure that there's no violation.
And if there's a violation, is it the business owner that's in violation or the passengers?
I don't have an answer to that.
State law, we probably wait for eternity.
That's probably a good idea.
By all means, feel free.
I'm no lawyer. I just make the laws. No, I'm not sure. So I don't have an answer to that. I do know that there is a restriction. And I don't know how the police would police it.
May I comment? Or is that allowed?
May you make a comment?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
rather
That's why
than
you're
just-
here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, you're not here just to ask questions.
Okay. It seems like it would be good for the city to have a plan in advance about whether they're going to, whether the owner will be fined or the passengers, if there's a violation of the restricted amount of alcohol.
Yeah, I'm sure the city attorney can answer that question. He'll be here hopefully during council meeting and before we vote on it.
So the third reading is tonight, so that
Yes.
means you're going to vote on it this evening.
Technically, we could table it, but if I had to guess, I would say that it's going to be voted on tonight.
And the other council members who are not part of your committee, they won't know anything about my input, correct?
Well, there are 2 additional council members here right now. We have 5 of the 7 at this point. It's not required that all of council show up for a transportation and
No.
safety committee, although I can't think of any reason why they wouldn't want to. So we've got quite a few of them at this point that will be voting, and I'm sure they've gotten some feedback as well.
Mhm.
Uh,
Okay.
So yeah, good questions. We do have a provision in the ordinance that says, except as otherwise set forth in the chapter, that's this chapter of ordinances, the operation of commercial quadricycles shall be regulated by the Ohio Revised Code. Of course, we've said that. The municipal administrator or designee may adopt rules and regulations to supplement this chapter. And part of that is we want to have a form filled out. They'll design the form, so forth. So there is some administrative leeway in implementing this if it were to pass. But I will ask the city attorney if we don't get an answer before the meeting about if who will check to see if the ounces are exceeded, and then also if it is exceeded, who gets to spend time with the law.
Maybe the question flew out of my mind.
Oh, I know how that is.
So right now, will there be any limit on the number of quadricycles? There's nothing in the proposed ordinance that limits the number of quadricycles?
There is currently no limit. And in fact, I was talking with someone earlier today about that, and the very same question came up. And that is, it's not like we're saying there shall not be more than 10 quadricycles on our streets at a time, because that would be really, I think, a difficult thing to enforce. If you have one company and they've got 3 quadricycles, then you're pretty safe. But who's to say that there's only going to be one company? And so theoretically, you could have multiple companies, and then they'd have to somehow coordinate so that, they juggle to see who's on there. So I don't know as if that's something that we want to wade into at this point, and probably don't need to. But to echo a very important point, and that is we do have the ability, if there's a quadricycle on every block, to see what, if anything, needs to be done to adjust that. And that's part of the reason of continually saying, this is how it is now. Go ahead if you wish to make your investment, but it could very well be that there will be further changes later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments by the committee? We're on item E, committee members' discussion and recommendations. I'm assuming there wasn't anyone else that wanted to speak. Okay. Any further? I think it would be helpful to council if we were to make a recommendation. So I move that we recommend this ordinance to the full council with the proviso that it is an initial best first step, but there may be need to revisit it in the future. And that would be my motion.
I
Second.
second that.
Okay. Any discussion about the motion? Then let's vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Me? Yes. So that's our recommendation. Now, before we adjourn, I did want to bring this up and see what your thoughts are about making a commitment that in 6 months we will revisit this and see if there's any adjustment that needs to be made. I mean, if something happens prior to that, we don't wait 6 months, but just to let people know, again, to reinforce that this is the initial best first step, but we will reevaluate after we've got some track record and there may be some things to tweak. So we make a commitment that in 6 months we'll revisit it as a committee.
I'm not in support of that.
Okay.
I feel like, this business is in operation in a number of other cities. Seen it in Tiffin, in Toledo, various cities across the country. I think if we have problems that are unique to Bowling Green, we'll be able to identify those problems and make those changes if we need to. And this legislation is going to give us clear understanding of who's operating in the city. So we'll be able to take the steps we need if they become necessary.
I would agree with Joel. I think as needed, I would be more comfortable with that. Issues do come up, we can revisit it, but
And we certainly can. Okay. Then anything else before we adjourn? I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We adjourn. Thank you very much, gentlemen.